started. For those of you watching remotely now, people are going to ask questions. We're going to have a relaxed format, and we'll do some review for the exam on Friday. What you got? How's everybody doing? I got to open up my chat. Hold on. Any questions? Concerns? So I can show, I can prompt. Good, I'm glad to hear things are going well. I can prompt you for questions by showing you, oh no, my lighting's bad today. So we have topics. So these are the topics for the test on Friday. It's going to be basically everything that we've covered in the semester so far, excluding movement, this most recent class that I posted. So we're going to be talking about constituency. We're going to be talking about tree drawing. Obviously, there'll be tree drawing. We're going to be talking about structural relations, and we're going to be talking about theta theory. So if that helps you, if you have questions on any one of those topics, I'm happy to dive into those in more depth. The test is now, so Caroline asks, is the test now open note now that you are at home? And the answer is like, not particularly, but we're operating on the honor system here. I'm obviously not going to be like policing you. I'm giving it to you at home. Don't use your notes, but I won't know if you do. But I'm grading it like it's a not open note test. So no, it's not open notes, but there's no like punitive judgment here if you look. You're still time limited, so you're not going to be able to look up anything anyway. That's kind of the idea. I'm not going to be able to look up everything. That's it. Other question is, what will the format of the exam be like, and how will we draw trees online? Yeah, so let's talk about the format and how this test is going to work. How it's going to work is that at 10 a.m. on Friday, I'm going to upload an assignment to Moodle. It'll be a test, just like your other assignments, where it'll be a Word document. It'll be a Word document that you can download, and it will have a due date of 2 hours later at noon. And so the idea here is that you fill it out and you upload it back to Moodle within that 2-hour time period. You could probably, if you want to do that online using some online tree, I know some of you have been using online tree drawers so that you can put it right in the Word document, that's fine. If you just want to have a blank piece of paper and answer the questions on there, including drawing the trees by hand, that's probably the easiest method. So you can draw them all on a blank sheet of paper, snap a picture of it, however, whatever camera you have, and just upload that picture of the test. It's totally fine. This is also why you have 2 hours to complete it rather than just the 1 hour. The idea isn't to be time pressured or technologically challenged or anything like that. The test I expect to only take about 40 minutes of that 2-hour chunk. So you'll have a little bit extra time to account for technology. And also, if you have technological problems and you have some sort of panic moment, just email me. We'll figure it out. It's fine. No panic-inducing state is necessary there. If that doesn't answer your question in its entirety, please just send a follow-up question, Melinda. So yeah, I'm not expecting you to draw trees online. I'm anticipating that you draw trees by hand and then take a picture of them. But if you want to use an online program for that, that's obviously fine too. I'll take trees however I can get them. Yeah. Will the EPP be on there? The extended projection principle is a question that I just got. Yeah, the extended projection principle will be on there. That's essentially the last thing that will be on there. Nothing past that. So that has to do mostly with the Theta Criterion, and things about theta rules are on your test. You'll have to know the thematic relations, you'll have to know what theta rules and the Theta Criterion are, and in addition, you'll have to know what the EPP is. Yeah, that's a great question. Any other questions? Topics are also fine. So if you have specific questions, like we're just being asked, that's great. But if you just have like, hey, I'm unclear about the EPP, or I'm unclear about the Theta Criterion, or I'm not sure about C command in binding, those are also totally appropriate questions, and we can go over some practice problems on things like that. Life is weird right now, and I don't know what to do at home. Those are also acceptable questions. Sweet. A couple questions, both about tree drawing. Let's do some practice. Emily, did you have a specific question about tree drawing?
Well, I was just wondering if like you wanted us to use like all the like nuances that we've learned up until this point. I know like movement isn't included in this, so it might be a little bit different, but like up until what point should we like how hard, I guess, is the hardest problem going to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So how specific we've been adapting and kind of changing our rules for how to draw trees moving forward through this system. And the answer, you nailed it. We're going to use all of that nuance up to the point of movement. You won't be asked any questions about movement, but you will be asked, you will be expected rather to include things like CPs and TPs in all of your trees, things like that. So let's do some practice tree drawing. I have 6 sentences of increasing tree complexity. Let's start with number 1, and we'll work our way up. We can skip some levels if we want. So I'm gonna give you a sentence. You're gonna practice drawing the tree if you'd like. You're encouraged to join in, and then I'll also be drawing the tree on my board, and we'll talk about it after that. That's how this section will go of the review. So the first sentence that you're going to be drawing a tree for, again, hopefully these are easy to start out with. If not, that's fine too. The first sentence is, the man ate the sandwich. The man ate the sandwich. So there's our sentence, the man ate the sandwich. I'm going to be drawing the tree along with you, and then we'll present and talk about it at the end. If you have any questions, oh yeah, typing out the questions in the chat makes like 100% sense. I'll absolutely do that. So there's your first sentence. If you have any questions in the meantime while we're drawing this sentence, feel free to pipe up throughout as well. Otherwise, a little awkward silence never hurt us.
Ross, will you take points off if we like leave, for instance, like the C space empty and we don't put like a slash through it? Do you have a preference about that, or?
No, that's functionally equivalent as far as I'm concerned. So I wouldn't take points off for that. Whether you put a null sign in an empty slot or not, as long as you have the slot there and available, it's not a big deal there. You can save yourself the pen strokes if you don't want to write those. I usually don't myself. All right. How's the sentence going? How's the sentence progressing? What do we have in our chance now? Good. We have We got people here. Sweet. I'm going to show this one just in the sake of continuing to move through our material here. Oh, I haven't done this in a while. I'm bad at navigating my board. Ah. I'll come up with a fancier share screen later on. Anyway, we can see that this tree starts with a CP, goes to a C bar, C, goes to a TP, T bar T. This is our normal structure, right? With this V bar, VP, V bar V, excuse me, coming off of that. That's how you're going to be starting the vast, vast majority of your sentences, right? So if you are ever in doubt on your test, fall back on that sort of spinal structure and work from there. Just start with that blankly on your page without even having the words in it, and then move in from there, right? And we can talk about other things that we do often, right? So we have the man as our DP coming off of this TP in the specifier of TP position. We move down to 8, the sandwich, with the sandwich being the question we have to ask ourselves, is that a complement or is that an adjunct? We'll have to remember to always be asking ourselves these kinds of questions. In this case, it's a complement. So we have it off of the V bar, which is a sister, and the DP head is a sister of V in that complement position. Questions about that? Comfortable with this level of sentence? All right, I'm going to ask for like greater increased audience participation. If you're just chilling in the chat here and watching, which is totally acceptable, give me like some indication of thumbs up, thumbs down for that sentence. Sweet. So this is the basic level of sentence that we're working with. Looks like people are fairly comfortable with this. Excellent. That's how I would hope and expect. How much more do you want to be challenged? Do you want to go up 2 levels, 1 level? 2? Yeah, I think we're ready for 2 levels up here. Sweet. Let's do this one. We're going to do this sentence then. Our next sentence is going to be, I know that you like linguistics. This may actually be like 3 levels up, but you'll forgive me. I know that you like linguistics. I do know this, yeah. Confirmation. This is a significantly more complex tree than the one we just did. 1 level up would have been having things like adjectives and adverbs, prepositional phrases in there. This is 2 levels up with a more complex structure. Again, if you have questions about this tree while we're chilling here drawing this, feel free to pipe up and ask questions. Otherwise, we'll talk about it and I'll give you some tips on how to break this down. I'll give you just a minute more to get through the rest of the sentence, though. All right. We're ready to take a look at this one. Again, this is a couple levels harder of a sentence. Can't get my glare. There we go. So the trick to this sentence is that we have to see the structure, the underlying structure here, which is we have I know, where I is the subject of this higher clause. So we have our normal CP, C bar C, TP, T bar T, and the subject of that, should the second CP be an adjunct? Oh, that's a great question. Let's get to that when we get there in the structure. Good question, though. So we have this higher clause structure where I is the subject and know is the verb. I know. The tricky part is what's the object? What do you know, right? What do you know? And you know this whole thing that you like linguistics. That in its entirety is the complement of know. So the question there is whether this entirety, now that we have spotted that what the object is of know is that you like linguistics, is that a complement or is that an adjunct? That's a question we have to ask ourselves. And the answer here is that that is, in fact, a complement. It's a CP complement. Know takes that CP complement that you like linguistics. Hopefully I drew it that way. I can't actually see my own tree at the moment. Yeah, but it's a complement, so it's going to be coming off of that V bar to a CP. And here we see that this actually isn't, yeah, CP stands for complementizer. So it's a complementizer phrase. And the complementizer in this scenario is that, right? I know that you like linguistics. That is in the C position because it's a complementizer. Once we know this structure, once we've kind of seen through that this has two clauses, I know and that you like linguistics, the tree drawing itself should be fairly simple, right? If I gave you the sentence, I like that, if I gave you the sentence, you like linguistics, you wouldn't be challenged by drawing that sentence. All we need to do is see that that whole phrase, that you like linguistics, is slotted into the complement or object position of the higher verb know. It's what you know. CP stands for complementizer. Note that sometimes you won't have a complementizer, you won't have the C. So if you consider the question, I know you like linguistics. I know you like linguistics. That nonetheless has the exact same structure. The only difference between this sentence, I know that you like linguistics, and I know you like linguistics, is that the C slot is empty in I know you like linguistics. You just don't put the that in. That's literally the only difference in those two trees. It makes it a little bit harder to spot that you're dealing with a CP. When you get that in there, you know you're dealing with a CP. When you don't have it, it's harder to tell, but nonetheless, it's the same structure. Michelle asks, we're talking again about whether this is an adjunct or a complement, the CP thing. What about a sentence like, I know in my heart that you like linguistics? I know in my heart that you like linguistics. Ooh, that's a good question. I know in my heart that you like linguistics. That one I'll actually have to think about. That makes it appear a little bit less complement-like. You definitely have another V bar in there because you're knowing in your heart, but it is odd that that gets to be closer to the verb know than it would be otherwise. Let me screen cap that real quick. I know that you like linguistics. Got some questions going in. Shoot. Sorry, technologying for a second here. Your screen froze. I know. Here's a question. Did the T bar go to a DP or a VP? My screen froze. So you mean the lower TP then, Emily?
Yeah.
The lower TP goes to a T bar, goes to a T. Off of the TP is a DP. The T bar goes to a V.
Okay.
That's the like, because this is for the lower clause, you like linguistics. So there the structure works just as you'd expect. Off of the T bar is the V, like. The subject you comes off of the specifier TP position. The DP is off of the TP there.
So you're sorry, I just need to clarify. So
Yep.
the second TP, it goes down T bar, and then you said it goes to a VP, and that just goes the way you were thinking?
Yep. So can you see? I don't know how well you guys can see when I write like this.
Oh, it's unfrozen. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah. Just like you draw a normal declarative sentence. You like linguistics.
Okay.
All of that's the same there. Sweet.
I
And yeah, Michelle, does that mean we need another node? If we wanted to treat it as an adjunct, we would need another node there, another V bar node, like Connor said. But if we're assuming it's a complement, we don't. So that, like I said, I'll have to get back to you. I'll have to spend some, I'll think about, I know in my heart that you like linguistics. But there won't be anything that complicated on the actual exam. So for Friday's class, that's not a concern we'll have to deal with.
Okay, I was just wondering, like, so if we're drawing this sentence on the exam and I decided that it was an adjunct because of that, concern, would that lose points if I drew it so that there was enough nodes for that?
The real answer of what would happen there is that I would almost certainly mark you down for that. And then you would get your test back and you would say, hey, this is what I was thinking when I was drawing this tree. And I would 100% give you points back for it.
Okay, so I can come fight you about it.
You can absolutely come fight me. This is true on homeworks. This is true on tests. This is true on anything except for real life. Can't actually fight me, but about problems and grading, you can always fight me. That's acceptable. Especially when it comes to a couple things. So one place where that's going to happen is complements versus adjuncts, because it's not always crystal clear and you can be thinking sentences in your head that I wasn't thinking, like the one that Michelle just brought up. And the other place where that's true to some extent is constituency tests, because constituency tests also suck. They're super variable, they're tricky, they're not concrete. The only reason you're less likely to fight me about constituency tests is I'm more likely to just give you the points to begin with. So you'll have less to fight me about, but that's also totally acceptable. Here's a question from Janae on the exam. Will the sentences have a that for us to know if we need another CP, or will we have to know in the less obvious case? You'll have to know. I reserve the right to give you the trickier case in which the that is omitted. So for instance, in the sentence, I know you like linguistics, you will have to be able to realize that that's a CP. That being said, if you put that as something like a TP because the CP is not there, you won't be losing many points. That's the basic idea, is that there's another sentence in there. There's another clause in there. And whenever that's the case, we want a CP, but if you accidentally miss it because I didn't give you the overt that's not a big deal. So yes, you'll have to know in both cases. If I'm feeling generous, I'll give you a that. If I'm trying to be a little trickier, I may omit it. Good. This is good questions to be asking, good clarifications to be doing, and good practice as well. Other questions, or should we move on to a new sentence with new troubles awaiting us? Sweet. Let's carry on. We can do a new sentence. Yeah, let's do a new sentence. How hard do you want to go? We could do one more sentence and then move on to something else, or we can do two more sentences. We can go up incrementally, or we can go straight for the hardest sentence. If you can do, I should say, before we do any sentence, if you're comfortable with this level of sentence, I know that you like linguistics. That is the probably 85% of the trees or below are going to be at that difficulty level. So if you're comfortable there, like you're sitting pretty good, because it's not like trees are the entirety of the test anyway. So yeah, if you're comfortable there, you're in a good place. Let's do a new sentence. All right. What sentence do I want? Let's do a sentence like this. Our next sentence that we're going to do, we'll do two more of these because this is going to be, this is good practice to have. Our next sentence is, I frequently eat sushi with my boss. I capitalized sushi for some reason. I don't know why. I frequently eat sushi with my boss. So if you're curious how I'm going to start this sentence, carry on drawing if you like, but I'm going to draw this spine first. So I'm going to start with my CP, C bar C, going to TP, T bar T, and then I know what a subject looks like in this DP goes to NP. I haven't even put in the words, and now I know I have my VP goes to V, some number of V bars here before it hits a V. So I have kind of a skeleton structure of my tree that looks like this, which is likely what you're going to be seeing for the majority of your sentences. You'll have modifiers, you'll have complements, you'll have adjuncts, you'll have tense things that you need to fill in, but it's a fairly good structure to start with for us here. So I'm going to continue filling it out from here. But if you were wondering where to start, that's what I recommend. Sweet. So again here, this is about the, about the upper end of the difficulty of sentences that you'll expect to see. This one I would put it about the same difficulty as that last sentence that you did. We didn't really up it, we just changed to more modifiers here. So if you're comfortable with these things, you're in a good spot. If not, let's take a look at them and make it so that you are comfortable. So here we've got a single clause, which is nice. We start with our skeleton there, CP, C bar, C, TP, T bar, T. From our DP, we have that our subject position I here with our normal DP structure. The interesting and tricky part comes when we get to this V spine structure, because we have a lot of things modifying eating. All right, let's think about all the different things that are modifying eating. We have sushi, we have frequently, and we have with my boss. So it's a good categorization practice to do, thinking about all the different constituents here that are modifying your verb. Here we have 3 of them. We have 3 of them, and they're unrelated. That means we're going to need at least 3 V-bar structures. At least 3. Could be 4, actually. And so now we need to determine which of these 3 is the complement and which of them are adjuncts. This will determine where we put them in the structure, because the one that we determine out of these 3, to be the complement is going to have to be the sister of the V. That's the important part. It's going to come off of the lowest V bar, and be the sister of V. This we're going to test, and we're going to find out that it's in fact sushi. Right? Sushi is being eaten. Sushi is a necessary part. It sounds odd if we say, like, I frequently eat with my boss sushi. Right? We perform those tests, we move things around, and we find that sushi is in fact the complement here. The other 2 then are adjuncts. Frequently as an adjunct coming off of a higher V bar, and with my boss also an adjunct that's coming off of a higher V bar. Michelle asks a very excellent question here. Does the ordering of frequently an adjunct and with my boss matter? I pose that back to the class. Think about that. Does the ordering of our adjuncts matter here? I'll give you a hint, is that it definitely can matter. Ordering adjuncts is something that you have to pay attention to. But the question in this sentence, does it matter in this sentence? Let's hear some votes. Let's hear some votes in the chats, whether the ordering of the adjuncts matter or not. And we'll talk about what we need to pay attention to in order to determine that. Connor, you're being severely outvoted right now. So there's a couple of ways we can answer this question. The primary thing that I'm worried about, that is generally what that means, though not always. But the thing that I'm worried about here is word order. Did you get the word order correct? And in this case, whether you put frequently higher than with my boss or with my boss higher than frequently, because one comes off to the left and one comes off to the right, it actually doesn't change the word order at all, right? So in that sense, no, it doesn't actually matter which order they come in, as long as you get the word order correctly. And this is where we have to be a little bit careful that the ordering can matter. If we were determining in the sentence, I eat sushi with my boss frequently, this sentence, I'll type it in the chat. I eat sushi with my boss frequently. I can't spell. Versus I eat sushi frequently with my boss. Now the ordering matters, right? Because whichever one we put lower is going to be is going to be closer to eat. So in the first sentence here, I eat sushi with my boss frequently. We need to have with my boss in a lower V bar in order to get that word order correct. and not have it be the second sentence that I typed. I ate sushi frequently with my boss. So adjunct order can absolutely matter. But in this sentence, that's why it's a little bit trickier, it doesn't actually matter there. It's possible that we have, do you guys get different semantic readings based on where you put it? That's actually a possibility here. So you can say something like, I frequently eat, like sushi with my boss, or something like that. Or I eat, I got to figure out how the stress pattern here works. I eat frequently sushi with my boss, right? It's like, what's frequent about it? Eating sushi or eating sushi with my boss, or I think there's a subtle semantic shift there depending on how you order those things, maybe. But this isn't a semantics class. We don't care about that. So the answer structurally is that now these are both grammatical sentences and they work totally fine. Be careful about your adjunct ordering in general so as to get the word order correct, but otherwise that's totally fine. A good general habit when you're drawing syntactic sentences, and something that I highly encourage you do on your exam for Friday, is once you're done drawing your tree structure, read the sentence back. Read the sentence back. Make sure two things when you're reading the sentence back. One is that you didn't miss anything. It's actually the sentence you wanted it to be. And two is that you got the word order right. It's easy often when we think about sentences to kind of drop adjuncts and not include them when we do the tree drawing. And also to make sure we get the ordering of things like adjuncts right. Yeah, let's do a possessive S or an EPP. Those are a couple good topics for our next sentence. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's do a sentence with possessive S. I think that's probably one of the trickier aspects. So we're going to do the sentence. We're going to say the house's windows are clean. The house's windows are clean. The house's windows are clean. I typed it in the chat. A relatively simple sentence with that kind of tricky possessive S. All right, give you just a minute to finish this up. Again, we're mostly concerned about the possessive S structure in the subject here, the house's windows, and how we draw that. Cool. Let's go over that. So here, again, when you see this possessive S, you sort of, a good thing to know is kind of just to have this structure, the underlying structure of that possessive S memorized. So we start with our normal stuff, C bars and TPs going to T bars. But when we get to the subject here, oops, focusing on this part, I suppose. When we get to the subject area here, we see that we have a DP goes to D bar and D like normal, but also coming off of that DP is another DP. That's the trick of the possessive S, is the DP going to both D bar and a new DP. That's the trick. Once you get that, it follows fairly straightforwardly. The higher DP, the one that came off of TP, is your apostrophe S, is the Z windows, right? And the first DP, the new DP that you branched off lower, is the house. Take a look at that structure. It's actually a little bit easier to see and wrap your head around than it is for me to describe in words. Important aspects of this is that the apostrophe S goes with window here. In this sentence, the apostrophe S is the determiner of windows, of the noun windows. It's not actually, orthographically, it looks like it's attached to house. That's how we write it. But structurally, it's much more closely attached to windows. We have two DPs here. The house is a DP and S windows is a DP. If you're struggling to think, one complex thing with this is, how do we know which one's the higher DP, the one that's branching directly off of that the TP? And here we just want to ask ourselves, semantically, we can look out like, what is this thing about? What is the house's windows? That's like a type of windows, right? It's not a type of house. Windows is the entity there. The entity in question for the whole phrase, the house's windows, is that we're talking about windows. Therefore, we want windows to be the higher. And by higher, I mean the one that's directly attached to TP. Finishing up the sentence from there, I guess we may as well. We can also see some oddity here that normally when we have the complement of the verb, we normally have a DP or a CP, like we had in the previous examples. Eating sushi or knowing that you like linguistics, but here we actually just have an adjective. Are is the verb and clean is the complement. They are clean. So you don't need to go from this V bar that's going to eventually lead down to R. You don't have to go to some sort of convoluted DP structure just to get an adjective in there. You can actually just go directly to an adjective phrase, adjective bar, adjective to fit clean in there. Simple for yourself. Yeah. Questions about this possessive S construction?
It's not about the possessive S, actually.
Sure.
It's like another annoying question about adjuncts. But
it's totally acceptable. Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand how they work.
Yeah.
In this one, you could put like the word like frequently in between R and clean, right?
Yeah.
But I sense that it is a complement because you can't just say they are. Like you need that clean to be there.
Yeah, with verbal complements, the clean is the important part. It's the necessary piece. So you can have our frequently clean and our clean. And you can drop the frequently, but you can't drop the clean, right? You can't have a sentence like, the house's windows are frequently.
Okay.
It has that sense that it's missing something, and that's fairly typical of verbal complements in particular.
Okay, so that test is more important than being able to move it around.
Yeah, importance there, hard to say outright, but yeah, that's I think it's the more intuitive test. Is it necessary for a verbal complement? That fails us though when we get to complements of things like determiner phrases, right?
Okay.
When you have the book of poems is in that complement position there, right? But it's not necessary. You could just have the book.
Okay.
So for DPs, when you're looking at complements of DPs, it's typically more important to look at the movement test. Can it be moved around? Because necessity doesn't work. But when you're looking at verbal complements, I find it easier to go for the necessity test. Can it be dropped?
Okay, thanks. Sorry, it's just pretty confusing, but
yeah, that is confusing. And I think with when you get non-DP complements like this adjective clean, I think it's a little bit less clear. Where would frequently go in frequently clean? Yeah, so there you'd be forced actually to put it lower. I'll amend my sentence here on my board to fit that in. So for frequently clean, this is kind of the unfortunate part that Michelle was correctly talking about, is based on word order, you're actually forced to put it in that like complement position, or probably like this actually. Scratch that and pretend you never saw that. Oh no, I messed it up. All right. See this one instead. Forget you saw that last one. So in this scenario, frequently is still an adjunct because we still definitively at least don't want frequently to be a complement. So I added in a new V bar layer to make sure that it wasn't in a complement position, but unfortunately it is appearing between R and clean. So it's going to be closer, a lower V bar than clean is. This is less important for your test. So if this doesn't make perfect sense, that's totally okay. Don't worry about that. But this is how I would actually draw that. I'll look into that too. I could be wrong about this, but that's what I suspect would be happening here. Cool. Apostrophe S's. We got some more tree practice. Let me check one thing real quick, make sure nobody's struggling to get in. Sweet, we look good. Other questions? I know our normal class time is up. I'm more than happy to stick around and answer more questions. So if you have any questions and you're going to duck out, that's fine. Otherwise, if you want to talk about theta roles or structural relations or something like that, I'm happy to keep chatting about that too. Student-directed time. Yeah, let's talk about, that's a great plan. Let's talk about ESL projects before you guys disappear, if I can have you for a couple more minutes. So ESL projects, they kind of got sidetracked by everything that went down. That is, I should say, going down. So let's recalibrate on that front. Thanks again to the group that did present already and recorded. So we have a couple options here that I would like student input on. There's a couple ways we can accomplish these ESL projects. We're absolutely still doing them. It's an important part of the class, and we don't want to lose that, but we do have to change how they look because student presentations are a bit different in the world of online classes. So the two ways, sort of our two options that I'd like you to weigh in on here are, you can either do it like the first group did it, which was they presented and they recorded themselves on a phone or something like that, and uploaded the video for you guys to see, which I'll find a way to get to you still. I didn't want to put their video on YouTube without their permission. That's why you guys haven't seen it yet. So that's one option, is that you could do an asynchronous presentation where you record yourself and upload the video. Your other option is to do it like right now, right? So that we would just have a Teams meeting going on our Friday classes, and we would just be extending our foreign language Fridays classes to include these presentations. That's probably more like how you would have done it in class, except obviously online and virtual. So those are two possibilities. You could either record it. Let's choose one. I want to hear your input on which you'd prefer to be doing. Either doing it asynchronously and recording it and uploading it, or doing it in a Teams presentation on our Friday synchronous sessions. No preference is totally an acceptable answer there if you don't care, but respond. Got a couple no preferences. One for synchronously. I would prefer actually to have it be, the question is it possible for each group to choose for themselves? I would kind of prefer it all to be the same. It changes a little bit of the structure, and I think it'll make it a little more fair grading wise and otherwise. That being said, if somebody had extenuating circumstances, I'd be happy to let them choose. Hey, I know you're in this chat. I can see you as participants. So you should, you should chat. You should vote one way or the other. All right, so it looks like recorded is winning this vote. That's fine. If you'd like to do it synchronously, like I said, I'm totally willing to make some exceptions. So that's absolutely fine. Yeah, we're kind of split. We're a little bit split. All right, I gave it. I'll give in. I'll let you do it either way you want. So I'll let you decide as your group. due to our split nature here. So we can do it either way is fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to repost a new schedule for your presentations because our schedule got totally thrown off. So I'm going to post a new schedule on Moodle with your sign up. And then you can tell me whether you want to do it synchronously or asynchronously. That actually doesn't bother me. And we'll do it that way. I'll include the topics, I'll include the people, I'll include all of that information. And the same general structure is going to apply where you'll have some sort of conversation with me, probably via Teams the week before your presentation, regardless of whether that's synchronous or asynchronous. And then the week of, you'll send me your asynchronous video, or you'll just present in Friday's class synchronously. Does that make sense? Questions about that moving forward? Sorry, that kind of got lost in translation in all of this, but we'll pick it back up. And again, special thanks to the group that already recorded their video. If you have questions about that, I'm happy to answer more questions about the ESL teaching projects. Otherwise, when it's your group's week, you can always ask me questions the week before when we chat. I'm also happy to answer more questions about the exam. If people have to run, I'm going to have office hours as well tomorrow from 10 to noon, so you can catch me then as well. Also available to answer questions about the test, provide practice problems, anything like that. Sweet. Yeah, talk about structural relations and theta theory. So thanks. Like I said, anyone you're free to go. You're not being held here at any time. But I am happy to answer Yaelin's questions and talk about structural relations and theta theory briefly. So let's talk about structural relations first. While I have a tree written on my board, structural relations is essentially how we talked about several different ways in which the actual ordering and hierarchy of these tree drawings that we're making matter. Several different topics. The things we talked about are that you'll need to know for your exam are domination. Right? So domination is this relationship of something being higher in the tree than something lower in the tree. The key thing there is a node dominates another node if you can reach it by only going downwards, right? So for example, in this CP up here, it dominates everything, because you can get to any other node by only moving downward. That's domination. We also talked about relationships like sisterhood, right? That's up one and over, where they share a same mother. The mother is the node directly, one up, and sisters share the same mother node. So we had this kind of familial relations idea. So that's another way, another structural relation that we talked about. And lastly, another big one that we talked about was C command. And C command kind of combines these things, combines these ideas of sisterhood and domination. C command was the idea of you move one up, and then everything that your mother dominates other than you. One up, one down. One up, one down. So you move up to your mother, down to your sister, and you C command that one, and everything below that, everything that your sister dominates. C command was important for binding. Binding, something I'm happy to talk about more as well, if people are interested in that. That was another big structural relation that we talked about, which is essentially two elements, right? Something is bound if it is both co-indexed with something else, and it's C commanded by that thing that co-indexes it. So there was two conditions on that. One has to do with C command, the other one having to do with co-indexation. And we looked at the distribution there of what is bound and what is unbound between our expressions, sort of content nouns, pronouns, and anaphors, himself, herself, theirselves. They all work differently. Cool. That's roughly what you need to know about structural relations. If you're comfortable with ideas of domination, familial relations like sisters and mothers, etc., and C command, then you're pretty good on structural relations. Binding being sort of a subcomponent of C command there. That's C command, it gets used for a whole lot of things in syntax, but the main one that we're using it for in this class is in fact binding. How's that sound as far as structural relations goes, Yaelin? Or anybody else, for that matter. Yep, so those are the things you need to know about that. Thematic relations, I'll also go over this one kind of quickly, although feel free to ask me more about it in depth if you like. Thematic relations, what you're going to need to know is this. You're going to need to know what the actual thematic relations are. These are things like agent, experiencer, theme, recipient, goal, location, right? All of these are different thematic relations, and you will need to know what those are and be able to apply them to sentences. So if I give you the sentence, I feel cooped up, and I ask you, what's the thematic relation of I there in the sentence, I feel cooped up because of this quarantine? Think about it. What are you going to answer? I feel cooped up. Yeah, so remember again that there's multiple possibles. Thematic relations aren't mutually exclusive. So yeah, probably the number one thematic relation that you would go for here is experiencer. You're the one that's experiencing this cooped upness. Although agent, you're the one doing the feeling, there's also some merit to that. And I would accept either of those answers. So you're going to have to do that. Know what the thematic relations are, and when I give you a sentence, just be able to apply them. I think we did something like that in your homework. Basically, the problems that you're going to be getting look very similar to your homework. The other thing you need to know with thematic relations and theta roles is the Theta Criterion, what it is, that definition. One-to-one matching between theta roles and agents. Not agents, sorry, arguments. The other thing you need to know is be able to draw a theta grid like you did in your homework. So if I give you the verb, died or something, right? If I give you the verb died, you have to be able to draw a theta grid. What the theta grid encompasses there is what thematic relations the verb assigns, how many, to what constituent, like a DP or a CP or a VP, etc., and an example sentence. So I can do that for died right now, just to show you what you'll have to produce. So if I give you the verb die, this is hastily drawn and may not be legible, but if I give you the verb die, you're going to tell me that, okay, there's an experiencer, DP here, somebody who is experiencing the death, and then you're going to give me the sentence like the soldier died. The other thing you're going to do is that co-indexation. So this experiencer, we're going to co-index with I. Just random. It doesn't actually matter what you index there. It's just a variable. But then in your sentence, your example sentence, the soldier died, you're going to have to put that little co-index in there to show me that you understand which piece of this language is in fact the experiencer. What's being assigned, the theta role there. So that's a brief rundown of structural relations and theta theory. If you have any other questions, we can talk about that further. Cool. Sweet. Thanks, guys, for showing up too today. This is the first time I've ever used Teams, so it's going all right, I suppose. We'll make it work. If you have any other questions, feel free to, again, to stop in office hours tomorrow, 10 to noon. Otherwise, have a good one. Email me questions if you have those. Stay safe, and I'll catch you guys later. I'm gonna take off here.